children should learn to read by reading and learn to write by writing. Now this isn't too difficult. You can always find a low enough readability level for children in 3rd or 4th grade, but if you're teaching kindergarten or 1st grade, they don't know the letters. So that was the problem I faced, and that's when I decided to investigate predictable literature. And using predictable literature, children are able to predict the next word, the next phrase, event, or episode, because the predictable literature has patterns. There's a rhythm or a rhyme that the children can almost predict. They can guess what the next word is going to be. And predictable literature includes songs, nursery rhymes, poems, children's literature, and some big books. And I just wanted to share with you how I use predictable literature throughout the curriculum in my 1st grade classroom. And I make a lot of my own big books on the computer, and I'm just going to share how. For example, the best way to start is with nursery rhymes. This is children learn nursery rhymes when they're first born. They're read to them, and they know the rhyme. They can recognize the word by having memorized the nursery rhyme. It's hey diddle diddle. This little pig went to market. Smiling girls, rosy boys, come and buy my little toys. Monkeys made of gingerbread and sugar horses painted red. The rhyming words often predict what word is coming next. The words that they teach, the alphabet, the alphabet letters, the written symbols, but there's no stories that are incorporated in Sadie. So I use big books to teach like left hand, right hand. This is my right hand. I'll raise it up high. And through little poems, I would teach the different skills, like left hand, right hand, little or big, just finding poems by different authors. Hands, some are just little songs the kids know. Hands on shoulders, hands on shoulders, hands on knees, hands behind you, if you please. The kids are familiar with these songs, and they're exposed to the words over and over again. 10 little fingers. You can also teach math concepts with big books. 1, 2, buckle my shoe. And 10 little Indians. Little songs like this, the children are learning their math skills, number recognition, number words. Roll over. This is a subtraction song. There were 5 in the bed, and the little one said, roll over, roll over. So they all rolled over, and 1 fell out. And how many were left? 4. There were 4 in the bed, and the little one said, roll over, roll over. So they all rolled over, and 1 fell out. And they love to read, ouch. And then you count 3. Very good. Grandpa, come with me. This is a Wright book, big book. And with the Wright Company, you're allowed to use their text if you use your own illustrations. And that's how you have children make their own big books also. Grandpa, come with me. Let's go fishing in the sea. What will we fish for? What will we catch? And it goes through 1 pot of mussels for our tea. And then it's Grandpa. See, there's a predictable pattern. There's a predictable refrain in most of these books. I also find reading skills the most easily taught through using big books. This is one of our field trips. I'll show you field trips before I go into the reading skills. I'll show you how we go on field trips, and then our class comes back, and we make big books about the field trip we went on. And we went to the orange groves, and it was Anthony's Orange Groves. And whenever I make a big book, I make sure that the title page has the author or authors and who illustrated it, and I have a dedication and a pretend copyright. Just one, you know, it says copyright 1991 by Cristiano's Kids Incorporated. But so just so they get used to looking for the date of the copyright and when the book was written. And it starts out, we went on a field trip to Anthony's Orange Groves, and we rode on a school bus. We went with Miss Perez's class, and the children dictate a language experience story to me, the sentences on the board, and then I'll go home and put it on the computer, and then the next day they'll illustrate their page and what they dictated. And they love to see their names published and their illustrations. And the predictable refrain was Buck said, because Buck was our tour guide, and he was one of these old, you know, guys who knew everything about Florida, everything about orange groves, and he had so much information from this field trip. The kids learned not only about oranges, about alligators and everything. And we called it at the last, the children had their own little field trip notebooks, so they were taking notes to write the stories. And they said, how do you spell your name? And we said B-U-C-K, Bucking, and that's how we named our book. Another field trip that we went on was to the zoo. And when we went to the zoo, this was with a kindergarten class. I made this book. We rode a big yellow school bus to the zoo. We went to the tent where Miss Susan told us about things. And it goes on to say the things that we saw at the zoo. And then it starts naming the animals. First it says, then we got into our groups and walked all over the zoo. Mrs. Cristiano took a video of us at the zoo, and she couldn't carry the juice and her camera. That was a kindergartner who illustrated that. Isn't that pretty good? You find the talents in children. Some can't read, but I mean, this little boy could draw and color unbelievably. And Anthony said he would carry the juice. Everyone has Anthony in their class. Anthony was my little boy who couldn't cut, he couldn't color, he had a difficult time doing, you know, the Sadie skills, but he would love to grab a big book and go under a table. And I would catch myself saying, Anthony, stop reading and do your work, which is absolutely crazy because that's what I was trying to teach him to read. But we saw a sleepy leopard, and Anthony said he was thirsty. And we saw some black monkeys with white around their eyes, and Anthony said he was thirsty. Now Anthony was carrying the juice. This is a true story. We watched the video and wrote this, and it was almost exactly like the video. We saw two big brown bears, and Anthony said he was thirsty. And I don't know if you're noticing the juice is going down. This is true, too. And let's see, of the 3 giant turtles, and Anthony said he was thirsty. And we saw colorful toucans, and Anthony said, and the juice is about gone, he was thirsty. We saw pretty green parrots, and Anthony said he was thirsty. And the last animals we saw were 3 smiling alligators, and Anthony said he was thirsty. Then we sat down under a tree and had cookies. Mrs. Cristiano asked Anthony for the juice. And Anthony said he wasn't thirsty. And that was exactly how that day went. And for social studies, you can make books with the children called shape books, like in the shape of leaves. These are called pattern stories, or where you leave out just one word or one phrase, and each children has to fit it in. And fall is the time of year we see, hear, smell, and that was teaching the senses. And of course we taught George Washington, and each child wrote, first they colored their George Washington and wrote something about George. George was our first president, and George was born on a plantation. And they love to see, they wait for their George to come up. They love to see. And we also made Martin Luther King, and when the war, Iraq-Iran, I decided, we were discussing it in class, and I thought the children were having a hard time dealing with it. And so I decided to write a predictable book, of course, and to help them with it, and it was What is War For? And we dedicated it to the hope that children won't have to concern themselves with war. I saw on television today that soldiers have gone far away, and they've gone to a place that I don't know. I don't understand why they had to go. So I decided to ask my dad the score. I said to him, Dad, what is war for? And he told me about the Middle East, and I didn't understand that in the least, which is how the children felt. And I definitely had to know more, so I asked my mom, what is war for? And that's the refrain they read, what is war for? And she talked about the Allied defense, and this started to really make no sense. Finally, and finding an answer became a chore. Then I asked teacher, what is war for? And she explained about some Arab state. To this I could not at all relate. And Grandpa would know the answer for sure, so I asked him, Gramps, what is war for? And he said that war is to set men free. From what I've heard, war is not for me. This was an answer I couldn't ignore. Finally, I knew what war was for. We must fight for all men to be free. I wish it could be done peacefully. And then we looked at the map, and we found where the war was. And a lot of children, their fathers or uncles or cousins were over there, and it helped them to deal with it. And for reading skills, you could teach. The whole language conference I went to last year, they said that the alphabet should only be taught by introducing a different ABC book a day for a month. That's how you should teach the ABCs. So I took Animals All Around the House, and it's a poem by Marlene McCracken. And the McCrackens are like the best whole language. Any books by Robert and Marlene McCracken is excellent for whole language. And you just read it to the children. At my house I saw an alligator in the attic. And they start learning A, bear on the bike, a camel using the computer. And instead of learning letters by filling out a sheet with all A's, find your A's, they learn it through a story in the context of sentence and meaning attached to the letters instead of just the written symbols. An elephant eating an egg, a dinosaur on a desk. And that's how I teach the alphabet. And there's a lot of great ABC books in the library you can find. And you can teach verbs by just finding a poem. This is Moving by Clarice Allen. And it's simple enough for kindergartners to even learn. The illustrations also help to make a book predictable. Squirrels climb, birds fly, ants crawl, and I wave goodbye. And the rhyme helps them to predict too. And then we talk about moving and doing words and verbs. And to teach the letter I, which is like very difficult. Long sound and the short sound I is hard. I just made a story about Inky Inchworm. And it's a repetition of I words. Inky's life that made life impossible for him. This is the story. And he lived in an inn, and there were insects there, and infants that cried, and he would always say, icky, icky, icky. And when you have the children say this along with you, move their hands, they're learning the sound of I because they remember the icky, 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 the ick sound. And short I is very difficult for children. Let me just put, the other best thing to use when you're making predictable books is songs. Or like I taught in daycare, nursery school for a long time, and one of the favorite songs was The Other Day I Met a Bear. And it goes, the other day I met a bear up in the woods, oh way up there. The other day I met a bear up in the woods, oh way up there. And I had this page without the illustrations because I wanted a lot of critics of whole language say the children just memorize the words and they don't recognize the written symbols. And using, showing it with the illustrations and then taking away the illustrations forces them to read. You take more notice of the written symbol. And this is one of their favorites. He looked at me, I looked at him, I sized up. He sized up me, I sized up him. He said to me, why don't you run? I see you ain't got any gun. And so I ran away from there, but right behind me was that bear. In front of me there was a tree, a great big tree, oh lordy me. And the children just we try and sing the song without the book, they'll always go over and get the book and bring it to me to make sure I have it. And this is a song in a book that by John Langstaff that I usually use this as one of the very first books because it has such a rhyme that the children love it. And everyone knows these songs. Oh, hunting you go. You ever heard it? Yeah. Oh, a hunting we will go. A hunting we will go. We'll catch a fox and put him in a box, and then we'll let him go. Oh, a hunting we will go, a hunting we will go. And I'll explain the stories from England, and a baby carriage is called pram in England. We'll catch a lamb and put him in a pram, and then we'll let him go. And the children, when you're using these, after you've read them a couple times, they know the meaning. You can say, could someone come up here and point to the B word on this page? And then that's how they learn letter sounds and letters that words begin with. And Over in the Meadow is another favorite song. And this is by Oliver A. Wadsworth. Over in the meadow, in the sand, in the sun, lived an old mother toad and her little toady one. Wink, said the mother, I wink, said the one. So he winked and he blinked in the sand and the sun. Over in the meadow where the streams run blue lived an old mother fish and her little fishies too. And you can just use the pattern and make a book on anything, like over by the old barn door lived an old mother cow, and just, have your class write their own predictable book using that pattern. Another favorite is meatball mush. And everyone knows, on top of spaghetti, all covered with cheese. I lost my poor meatball when somebody sneezed. And just the illustrations make it easy enough for them to be able to read it by themselves. And when you have a really bad day, then you get out my favorite things. Or pretend like you're in the Sound of Music or something. Raindrops on roses, and they love this. And roses and whiskers and kittens, bright copper kettles and warm woolen mittens, while geese that fly with the moon on their wings. These are a few of my favorite things. And then have the children discuss what their favorite things are, or draw a picture and make their own book of what their favorite things are. And another song that the children know from preschool and nursery school is The Bus. And instead of the wheels on the bus go round and we throw the kids on the bus. And this is when I was teaching on a bus, and I was teaching your class. I was teaching Chapter 1 federal programs. And the children, I had to go from school to school, and I was on a school bus that had 3 computers in the back, and it was carpeted and had desks. And that's how I taught for 3 years. And we learned reading and math, reading and math, reading and math. And then each child did their own page. Bernadette on the bus, and Jenny B on the bus, and Shayla on the bus. And everyone contributed, and it was really, and then we had all our pictures on the front. And I just want to quickly show you how you can teach sequencing using predictables, like Shel Silverstein has a great book. And it's a cumulative pattern. Something's added each time. and this is a giraffe and a half. If you have a giraffe and you stretched another half, you would have a giraffe and a half. And if you put on a hat and inside lived a rat, you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat. And then you dressed him in a suit and he looked very cute, you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in a hat and cute in a suit. And it goes on cumulatively, and there's something added each page. And you can also, I make it so you can unclip these, and the children can put together 10 pages in order so they learn in sequencing, also using a book. And I just want to show you one last thing, how you can have the children innovate and make their own books. Like if you read, it looked like Spilt Milk. It's a very good children's literature book. Have the children make their own page, just draw an outline. Sometimes it looked like an egg, but it wasn't an egg. Sometimes it looked like a fish, but it wasn't a fish. Sometimes it looked simple frames that the children can all do. And even if they have to use invented spelling to spell words, or need help spelling words, you can help them. And of course, it was a cloud after all. At the end, it wasn't Spilt Milk. These were cloud shapes. Or Brown Bear, by Bill Martin Jr. You could read the Brown Bear, what do you see? I see a yellow bird looking at me. And instead we made at the zoo instead of Brown Bear. Lion, what do you see? I see a bear looking at me. Bear, what do you see? I see an owl looking at me. Owl. It continues, and it's a simple refrain that they can read if they're exposed to it enough, the words enough. And the Right Company has great books like Mrs. Wishy-Washy's by the Right Company and Lazy Mary's by the Right Company. And after I show them a book like this, I have writing refrains, and everyone does it by themselves. And they have, at the end of the year, they have accumulated a book of predictable stories that they can read at home. Like this was over in the desert, in the sand, in the sun, instead of over in the meadow. Thank you. It was over in the desert, lived an old Mother Blanket or Little Blank One, and they write their own pattern stories that they can read at home. And I just thought I'd show you that I have my children always making books. They're always making, either if it's a alphabet Pictionary, where they just fill in C is for, find a picture and write the word, or this was a story, Donald K. Donald K. What do you see? And we have field trip notebooks where we take notes like we're real scientists. When we go on a field trip, and we take notes and write them down. This is a blank one. And picture dictionaries. And I usually have my children all make their own storybook. And like the Sunny State Landscape, Soccer Team, The Puppy in the Box, or just a book of stories. And you can get these little stickers, and then they look like they're Caldecott Award winners. And you just stick them on. And that's about it. And it's a fun way for children to learn to read and story structure and to write and recognize letters and words. And also, I just want to point out that it's making one copy of a published book for your own personal use doesn't violate copyright laws. I have it in this paper to make sure, because I know nowadays it's very sensitive.